بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to you, our dear viewers, to this podcast online on YouTube regarding Islam and culture in modern times. I'm with you as Waseem Ahmed. We have our dear Honorable Shaykh Imran with us, joining us for this evening of discussion. Please share the link with your friends and family. Please ask them to tune in, to send questions in. If they have any questions regarding culture, Islam, our deen practices, then please send a question in on the comments. Inshallah ta'ala, we'd like to hear from you. How are you, Shaykh Imran?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Akh Aziz, I'm good. With the grace of God Almighty, with your dua. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Everything's going fine at the moment, inshallah ta'ala. Every single time at work, and my colleagues say to me, how are you doing? How's your fast? I go, I'm near the end now, alhamdulillah. I'm doing fine. If you saw me the first 3 days, then I probably would have said something to you. Do you understand?
Achha.
Amazing, frustrating, but I'm a bit like that. My
Are
body
you
takes
one
about
of those people that, kind of wakes their way into fasting slowly.
Hazrat gal hai ke our bodies are so adi of grazing, right, throughout the day. And then suddenly you are hit. You can't eat at this time, you can't drink at this time, you can't do this at time. You think it's Allahu Akbar Kabira. Do you understand? So alhamdulillah, it is something the body has to get used. This is why the tradition of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to keep the fast within Sha'ban was essential. He used to do this, alhamdulillah, which used to help.
Alhamdulillah, I personally did a few more than normal, alhamdulillah.
Mashallah.
We do the Nisf Sha'ban, but I did 1 or 2 more, and it helps a lot. I can actually relate to that recommendation from the Sunnah. When I came into Ramadan, I'd fasted a few Mondays basically and Thursdays beforehand.
Mashallah.
And it was really, really helpful in the first Ramadan fast. It felt a lot easier and adjustable. But it's been a blessed month, 20, 21, 22, 23, subhanAllah, it's flying, after 1 week left. SubhanAllah.
It's not the same, Sidi Mawlay. Wallahi, the attendance in the masajid, the not having tarawih, not having regular jamaat, not having, to listen to the Quran al-Kareem behind a Hafiz al-Quran, tracking down the Huffaz in Ramadan. Where the Huffaz sare kudhar gain? Unhe kabu karo. We have that type of attitude. Oh, we koni. They're sitting at home. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's been real. And it's like, it's not only national because it's international. Right? Alhamdulillah, we do. And it's beautiful, when they recite the Quran, and then we appreciate them, and then we, gift them whatever we can, because you can never give, whatever they have recited, it can never ever be compensated by the world. It can only be given by Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So I miss all of that. I miss the iftaris. I'm gonna say
it's been a unique Ramadan. It's been a unique Ramadan.
It's been very unique.
And I don't know if we'll ever experience something like this again. Maybe, you never know. But it's one to learn from, and maybe self-focus, this concept of khalwa or uzla, detachment from the world and focusing on yourself. I think they have this in, like these training yourself and getting a successful life coaching and all this kind of thing. They have take time out for yourself. So I think hopefully, with all being well, a lot of people, I can't say everyone, but a lot of people come back or come out of this stronger and raring to go, as they say, and alhamdulillah, being more productive in life and taking the opportunities. Inshallah. I think one thing I've learned is this: every single day there's so many opportunities just flying past you, so many things you can achieve and do and help with, and we are lazy. We're just passive. Need to become more active, inshallah ta'ala.
Anta kaslan li, Anta kaslan li.
Let's move into the topic, inshallah, for our viewers who tuned in. Assalamu alaikum to you all again for the topic of Islam, culture, and our modern times. And I think, just in general, we don't have to put modern times in there. I think the whole concept of Islam and culture. So where would you start today? Bismillah.
Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Habib Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi barik wa sallim. My beloved, I think there was a number of questions that were raised in the last session, alhamdulillah, which were related to, you've talked about, the family unit, but our families and our units are predominantly cultified, right? Or a bit
Yeah.
traditional cultures and etc. How do we deal with this? How do we engage with this? What should we do regarding this, etc.? So some of the questions were raised around that. But there was one or two questions that came up, and I think it is the right of the question that it should be answered as best as we can, inshallah
Beshak,
ta'ala.
Beshak, without doubt.
And I believe there's one question, Sidi, that was raised regarding toxic family members. So before we dive into the whole discussion around Islam and culture and what are the dynamics behind between this, and are they headlogs, or should they be plotted against each other? We'll go and have a bit of a chit chat regarding that, inshallah ta'ala, in a short while. But I think it was a very crucial, a good question regarding what do you do with people who are toxic
Yeah.
family members. In other words, poisonous members of your family. Yani, whatever good you do, they only see the bad. Right? They strip you down. Okay? They belittle you. Right? They don't look at the good in you. Okay?
Yeah.
Let me clarify something first. Look, first and foremost, what needs to be understood is all of the hadiths of Rasulullah ﷺ regarding relations of the Rahm. Okay? They emphasize not cutting the relations of Rahm. They emphasize that. The one who does this is not amongst us. The one who does this is not going to be part of us. The one who does this is rejected. The one who does this, etc., etc., etc.
Keeping family ties is important.
Oh, it's very crucial. And this does not only mean the nuclear family, husband, wife, children. No, it means the extended family. And even further, which includes uncle, auntie, taya, tai, hala, halu, all of them. That's what it includes, yeah? But let me share something. There was a hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ. I want to share this because it's not a modern phenomenon. कोई कह सकता है, oh, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam de waqt isko nahi hoya. Some could say this has never happened in the time of Rasulullah alayhi wasallam. Sidi Mawli. Yeah. No. In fact, I think we indicated towards this last time. Most of the hadith of Rasulullah alayhi wasallam, or what we read, what we learn, from the aqwal to the af'al to the taqari, all of them are day-to-day engagements, interactions of Sahaba Ridwanullah alayhim and their lives and their families. Yeah. There's a hadith narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu about an individual who came to the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. A man came to Rasulullah alayhi wasallam and he said salam to him, and then he said, Ya Rasulullah alayhi wasallam, I have relatives with whom I maintain my ties. I connect myself. I don't cut my ties with them. So while I don't cut my ties, they cut it with me. Right? They cut me off. I am good to them while they are bad to me. They behave foolishly towards me while I am forbearing towards them. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik sallim. Azar wajad ho gaya. Allah sani farmaye inshallah ta'ala. Allahu Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Yeah, alhamdulillah. At least you're okay. Allah khair kare inshallah ta'ala. Now, so the hadith goes on.
I'm just moving things around so I don't do any further disturbances.
Allah ta'ala khair kare inshallah. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad. No problem.
Back to your point here. You had the hadith.
No, it says that. So the hadith of Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam, in which Nabi Karim sallallahu ta'ala wasallam says to him, if things are as you said,
yeah,
that you are good to them, they're bad to you, you take care of your relationship, they don't want to care of you, this, that, whatever, it is as if you were putting hot ashes on them. And you will not lack a supporter against them from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as long as you continue to do that. In other words, the more good you do and the more harm they do towards you, they are creating their own hell. That's what's happening. I remember, and I want to share this because this happened. We were sitting in this. We were doing dars durus on Dora Hadith on Mishkat al-Misabi, and we were going to the chapter of Sila Raham Qata Raham with Dr. Bashir Ahmad Siddiqui Sahib Rahmatullah Ali, one of my teachers. Now, we were sitting there, we were going through one hadith, second hadith, third hadith, fourth hadith. There's about 10, 12 of us sitting in the class here. And every single time, one hadith, oh, the one who cuts their relationship is not amongst us. The one who does this is not amongst us. Oh my God, every hadith was like, what the, pressure.
Yeah.
Because you remember, I'm from a culture where our relations can be a pain in the you-know-where. I'm going to be blunt. So we came across this hadith as well. And we came across a number of hadiths again and again. I couldn't bear it. I raised my hand. I was 18 at the time, Sayyidi. I raised my hand and I go, Sayyidi Maulay, so a question. And they are Buzurg. Right? They're like Pirzada Sab's teacher. Pirzada Imdad Hussain Sab's teacher. That's who they are. All right. So we're talking about that. Like, they used to call all of us, they go, Dari wale bache. That's what they used to call us. All of us. But anyway, Dr. Sahab said, Dr. Sahab go. I go, Hazrat, just like this person who asked the question to Rasulullah, I'm asking my teacher now. I go to them, Ustad Sahab, agar aadmi baar baar dang mare, aadmi kya kare? That if a person continuously, right, snaps at you or harms you, hurts you, what do you do?
How can you do? Yeah.
Of course, very sincere to the hadith, he goes, you do not cut the relationship. Then he told one of my colleagues to keep on reading. We read about another 4 hadiths here. Naturally, dil mein to baat thi. I raise my hand again. I go, Ustad Sahab, I get what these hadiths are saying, but it's difficult. It's difficult. How do we do this? The one who harms us again and again, and coincidentally, alhamdulillah, at that time, one of the other brothers as well raised his hand and he supported what I was trying to say to Ustad Sahab. And then Ustad Sahab said something very interesting. And talking about toxic family members and how to deal with them, he goes, Hikmat amli ke saath kaam lo. Be proactive in your wisdom in relating with them. We go, Hazrat, what do you mean by that? He goes, look, यहाँ पूरी जो हदीस मुबारक है इसमें एक बहुत खास बात बार बार आ रही है कि the reason why the hadiths keep on saying that do not disconnect yourself with them, right, is that you don't harm them, that you don't hurt them, that you don't belittle them, that harm does not come from you. If there is a person like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to this individual, if what you are saying is correct, in the same way, Dr. Sahab go, if what you are saying is correct, this is exactly how it is, then to take your distance is much of a wiser position without harming or hurting them. Okay, no harm should come from you, no hurt should come from you, no belittling should come from you, right? But you distance yourself from them. That gave me so much relief, that statement. Because there are people who are very toxic. There are people who are jealous. Mm-hmm. There are people from the Hasideen. My brothers, my elders, and my youngsters, Ya Shaykh, Ya Maulay, you know yourself. When you're around negativity, you become negative.
Indeed, indeed.
For our well-being of our minds, we need positivity. So firstly, the whole distance. Then, don't just leave it to that. Do dua for them that Allah gives them hidayat. And ask
with the distance thing, maybe the question was referring to the persons in the household. So how do you distance yourself from somebody living under the same roof as you?
Sidi Mola, look, where there's a will, there's a way. You have to find certain ways of engagement with people. For example, look, the negative is your brother or your sister, right?
Maybe.
This doesn't always mean that you say, Abaji, Ammaji, I'm going to a different house completely. No, no,
Yeah.
no. There has to be some dynamics that you create within the home where you say, you know what, me being around you continuously is not helping me at all. I'm becoming angry with you. I'm getting frustrated with you. I'm getting to a place where, I don't want to do something that I regret.
Yeah.
You make a decision. And you're not making a decision for a long period. It's a short, because this is about your sibling. It's about your family. It might be someone in the home, might be auntie or uncle or cousin or someone that lives with you. Okay? You make a clear decision. Hikmat amli ke saath. That's what I mean. You're coming back to that practical wisdom.
Yeah.
That's how you deal with them. Make sure that you don't harm them, you don't belittle them, you don't dishonor them, but you find a way to distance yourself for a short period of time and deal with that relationship according. Why are they toxic? Are they jealous? Are they lacking in something? If there's a loss of something, it's many times happen. We live in extended families. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm married. I'm married with my Karali. My brother is also married Karali. Okay, we're in the same household. He gets on with his wife. Alhamdulillah, everything's good, everything's brilliant, mashallah. They're chilling out, they're going out, they're coming in, they're doing their thing. Menu television gram par gaya. Suddenly, this, what par gaya. Oi! He's living it. Why am I not doing that? Then what happens is I start becoming toxic towards him.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, the underline is I'm jealous. So the problem does not lie with that individual, it lies with me. I need to deal with my situation. And sometimes the person who's the victim can help that. How? For a short period, distance yourself and then finding a more practical, clear way of engaging with the person who has hasad in their stomach or in their heart. You have to do this. This is the proactive way of engagement, in my very limited understanding of engagement. Sidi, probably you could shed some light even more to illuminate this situation, inshallah. Tafaddal, Sidi.
First of all, I think the first step is, as you said, wisdom. Wisdom isn't knowing everything, it's knowing how to do certain things. We know what's right and wrong sometimes. We know that, like you said, exactly the hadith there. We know we're not supposed to cut off the family tie, but it's knowing how to not cut off that family tie. And I think that in the modern context, where I feel personally, this is my understanding of people today, everybody is becoming more and more independent, more and more isolated from the rest of their family. When I say isolated, I don't mean they don't see them at all. I mean they prefer to have their home separate to everyone else. And in the past, where you may have shared a home, maybe one or two families, or even 3 or 4 families, you never know. Today now everybody's looking as soon as possible to move out, to buy their own place, and I think is needed as well. This is the world we live in. I think for majority of people, that actually would be the better option. I think during this process is where the toxicity, and this kind of problems can arise. Sometimes it's actually going apart that can cause the problem. Some of the parents or some of the family members be like, why is he wanting to leave? Why has he got a house himself? Like you said, the jealousy can come in, or that he's going against the grain, and it's not normal for what we expect, right? The culture that they've lived in for the last 10, 20 years, which is changing. Like this is kind of relates to what we're talking about today in terms of the culture and the times we live in. And I think that we need to find a fresh understanding of how to live amongst each other and keep those family ties and respect each other. I think you mentioned a very important point there: do not dishonor or disrespect anybody, and at the same time it shouldn't be seen as disrespect if somebody says, I want to do this with my life. I'll give you an example of myself. I personally don't want a TV in my house. So when I was living with my family, my siblings, I made that clear, and I wasn't disrespecting them to say you watch TV, so I'm looking down at you and you're bad people, and I'm being this overzealous, pious, fanatical, which is the image that some people take of a practicing person, let's say. My point was, look, I just prefer to not have that in my life. So I'm going to take the steps to keep away from that. If you would like to help me, fine. If you don't, we can have a TV. It's not going to be the end of the world. Alhamdulillah, I don't have a TV now. One has, so my sister doesn't have a TV, my brother does have a TV. So it's 50-50, you know. But, you know, it worked, you know, like after time they listen, or some listen, some don't. But we did it, you know, with understanding that it's not a case of there's a level of attitude being given or particular imposing my view on them. It's just my personal choice. Just you have the personal choice of doing what you want. I have my personal choice. And I think that's what we need to today. I think that's where we are, that we need to respect everyone's choices because we've become independent. I think and everyone's the you know the socio-economical status of people has changed massively from where the cultures that we're, you know, personally, you and I probably are more accustomed to being around. So, I mean, it's not too different for our listeners, I believe, but you know, it's changed massively on that sense. So you can become a lot more self-independent, you know, reliant. You don't have to go too much on other people or your parents necessarily. But it doesn't mean you leave them. It doesn't mean you get away from these toxic people and never, you know, communicate with them again, which is what's happening as well. You know, if somebody is toxic or bad, it's basically the complete cut-off, which goes against the hadith, as your dear Ustaz Sahab Rahmatullah alayhi was warning you, not because of him and he wants to warn you, but because the Prophet ﷺ was giving us this direction. And so this is where now we come to a modern culture of being apart, having our own home, our own houses, our own cars, our own belongings and clothes. And you know, in the past, you know, brothers used to share clothes there. You know, he used to wear the jumper one day and he used to see his younger brother in school the next day wearing the same jumper. You know, this was beautiful. That's it, yeah. You know, that's it. Like, you know, you got your brother's one on. Yeah, he was, you know, lending me. Now you lend your brother something like this, you wear it. You know, it'd be like, "Hey, on up, you know, what's they can't afford clothing or something." You know, this attitude we have. So I think we've changed, and that's what I'm saying. This culture change has resulted in a different approach, and goes back to the wisdom of how to deal with this particular situation. I think that the question was. But moving on, Molai, to the culture aspect itself, I want to bring in. I'll mention something first, but I've got a clash of culture. I was reading this and I thought I'd share it, but I'll let you say a few words first before I mention. No, Jazakallah khair. So the first clash of cultures and it's an adult show, so I hope, you know, it's not suitable for children here. So please do make sure that children are not listening to this.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. It is obviously close to 12 midnight, so it's not supposed to be for children. The whole point is that it's for adults, and I hope viewers are enjoying and following and benefiting, inshallah. Please do share the link out. Please do ask others to join in. Please, I think we've got a question already. Thank you to Brother Farhan here, mashallah. But the one I think I want to mention, I was reading just literally a couple of days ago, not because of this, just happened to read it, and I was like, I didn't even know this. It's not something I'd come across. When the first clash of cultures was Makkah and Medina.
Yes.
It was a clash of culture. People think the Arabs, you know, the Sahaba, it was a clash of cultures. The people of Medina were different to the people of Makkah. And when the Makkans, the Muslims, you know, the Muhajirun, the immigrants, they left Makkah, they came to Medina, they were a different orchisi, right? It was a different kettle of fish. It was a different category of people. They were all noble and, you know, beautiful, but there was a clash of culture. And
Makkans were merchants, Madini were farmers.
Farmers, yes, exactly. There was differences. There was differences in what is good, you know, what's considered noble, what's considered, you know, doable, allowable, mannerisms. There was lots of difference. The one I was reading, it was tafsir of Quran as well, was about husband-wife relationships. And a Meccan male, Sahabi, married a female from Medina. And the Meccans had particular ways of doing things, you know, without being graphical. And, you know, mudbirin and muqbilin, you know, from the, you know, different positions, let's say. And this lady, she felt awkward. You know, it's not what I'm accustomed to, right? It was all obviously within the parameters of Sharia. And so this news actually got out. How it got out, Allah knows best. But basically, the culture clash became well known in Medina, that they're marrying, they're understanding each other, maybe talking amongst men, etc. Nothing mentioned personal details, but obviously they might ask, do you have a culture like this? What do you do when you go home to? Is this normal? You know, this sort of talking. And so the Prophet got to know about this. And revelation came. Nisa'ukum harthul lakum fa'tu harthakum anna shi'tum. You know, your women are your tilth. and go to Yemen. But the
As
point
you
I'm
want,
trying to
as you
make, let's go back reverse a bit here before we go down the wrong road on today's topic, is there was a culture clash between the Meccans and the Medinans, and it was on a very personal husband and wife level, that they didn't feel comfortable with the
yeah.
culture and the practices of somebody else, and they had
See,
to get
Maulaya,
accustomed to that. But it
they had to
wasn't,
get, but
and the revelation didn't negate either. It didn't say they're right, they're wrong. Or he said, look, this is just between, as long as this in one place, it's all permissible.
it is. And let me also say this, Akhil Aziz, that see, you use the word clash, and in discussion, in dialogue, in conversation, in modern understanding about this thing, is that in reality it's not a clash, because the thing is, in
What word would
culture,
you use? Please
and
educate me. What word would you use?
different cultures, different cultures, because the thing is, one of the key things which I want to probably make the precedence here regarding the whole discussion around Islam and culture is that what we need to understand is what is culture. All right.
Mhm.
So culture is the characteristics and the knowledge of a particular group of people, all right, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, art,
Yeah.
appreciation of particular type of, architecture, or whatever it is. This
Yeah.
is culture, right?
Good. I think
And I
that's
came
good to
out,
define. Good.
yeah. So when you look at it from this position, that it's called the Center of Advanced Research on Language. Okay, the acquisition goes a step further. They go a step further, defining culture as a shared patterns of behaviors and interactions. Shared
Mhm.
patterns of behavior and interactions. That's what they're seeing this is, right? This happens through socializing. No one culture around the world is unique only to them people. It has been adapted, changed, moved. Their language has been influenced, their cuisine has been influenced, their behavior has been influenced, their clothing has been influenced, their attitude has been influenced. Sidi, have you got a speaker on?
You getting feedback?
Yes.
Yeah. I have got a speaker on. I'll turn it off. Don't worry. I'll go
Jazakallah.
to the
Love you.
earphone like last time. No, that's fine. So carry on. So,
Yeah. So
shared
so so
practices.
so when you look at from that position, but then look, culture from Arabic position, thaqafatul Islamiyya, right?
Yes.
Culture, education, enlightenment. Now the key word culture comes from is a derivative from French, and the French one comes from Latin. Okay. Now what it means is to cultivate. It means to cultivate, right? The culture is the process of cultivation in a society, in a community, right? To grow the different dimensions within that society and that community. Sorry. That's what this is. Okay? Sakafat al-Islamiyya, or sakafa of any country or place or nation or whatever it is, this is what it is. Right?
Gee.
So now, if we understand that culture encompasses all aspects, so it deals with religion, food, deals with what we wear, how we wear it, our languages, marriage, music, what we believe in is right and wrong, how we sit at the table, how we greet visitors, how we behave with loved ones, and a million other things, my beloveds. What needs to be understood is that, in the whole study around anthropology, study of human behavior, interaction,
Yeah.
etc., we touched on sociology and all of that. This is one of those essentials in the development of any society, right? To have a civilized and cultured people. Because, when we talk, we go, oh, it's a very cultured person. What that means is that person has immense appreciation of the more refined aspects of life. So a
Of
person
what?
who, or for example, of a person who has understanding of different cuisines, right? Different subtleties of language. okay, appreciates different aspects of architecture. So I can tell the difference between European architecture compared to Eastern architecture, Eastern compared to Middle Eastern architecture. These are all part of the refineries of life. So I was saying, Akhil Aziz, that
Yes.
culture itself encompasses many aspects and many elements, right? So in my personal opinion, and of course the study I have around this subject matter, all right, that culture, in my view, culture is the overarching umbrella, and
Yeah.
religion is the moral code and guidance for that. What we do is we plot these against each other. You can't plot religion against culture, or when we plot religion against science. I think that's something
Yeah.
we need to talk about. But
That is true.
that's
Yeah.
them are the wrong things to plot against each other, right? If you plotted religion against atheism, for example, right? Like faith in
Obviously.
God and faith in no God, that makes
Yes.
sense. That makes sense, right? So you can have a discussion, conversation. You're dealing with the same usul and the rules and regulations and etc. But to plot culture against religion doesn't make sense, because the beautiful aspects of culture are not eradicated when religions and faiths and dogmas are practiced or implemented. Let me share. In the time of Rasulullah,
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Rasulullah came to the 5th, 6th century culture of Makkah al-Mukarramah. He did. He lived amongst them. He understood them. He wore the clothes that they wore. He wore, the headwear that they wore, the slippers that they wore. He had an understanding of the cuisine of that time. He understood how the houses were, every aspect of that particular community. Prophet ﷺ was ingrained into that. But what the Prophet ﷺ did, he rectified the wrongs of that culture. For example, they would murder their own daughters. What did Deen do? What did Rasulullah do? He said to the people, your daughters are the means of you going to heaven. The one who looks after 4, of course, will look after 3. The hadith goes on, who looks after 2? And the Sahabi Rasulullah, what about if he only has 1? He said, there is no limitation in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if you do this, what was Rasulullah doing? He was rectifying the wrong within that culture.
Yeah.
So he didn't eradicate the whole system. You are all wrong. You are all galat. You are all this. Get out of my face, or I'm going to implement something new. It didn't happen like that, Sidi. Did it?
Definitely.
And you can see that, wallah, you can see that throughout the whole life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the life of the Sahaba radwanullah alaihim, tabi'in, taba tabi'in, Imam Mujtahideen, of course the Umayyad period, the Abbasiyad period, and etc. You see that very clearly. As the Muslimin entered into different societies, communities, and they came across different cultures, cultivations of different growth of likes and dislikes and cuisines and tastes. Didn't just say in Arabia, right, the food that you usually eat, that's the food you're going to eat. Or what we appreciate to be nice and great and lovely, that's what you have to appreciate nice and lovely. No, but what they did do was they rectified the wrongs that were happening. For example, look, in my understanding, ya Shaykh, I'm going to quote someone very significant who's known as the most, how should you put it, the most wisest son of China, Confucius.
Bilkul.
Another culture, another community, another people. Yeah.
Yes, heard about him. Yeah.
Yeah. Look what he said. He said something very interesting. He goes, "What is God given is called nature. What is God given is called nature. To follow nature is called Tao, the way. The way. Tariq, Ash-Sharia. Right? To cultivate the way is called culture.
Subhanallah.
To cultivate the way is called culture. Now, if the cultivation is done wrongly, right?
Yeah.
Because he's starting by saying what is God given is nature, and to follow nature is the way. To cultivate the way, in order to cultivate the culture, the nature, sorry, is called culture. But how do you cultivate it? In the most beautiful way possible. And how do you
Simple.
do that? You do that through the tenets that have been given to you, the rules and regulations that have been provided for you, the guidances that you have been given. In our case, is Islam. Maulaya, you and I both know when we deal with Islam, what do we say? We go, what's the first thing that we look at? It's Maqasid al-Sharia, don't we?
Maqasid al-Sharia, yes.
What is Maqasid al-Sharia? Preservation. Preservation of life, preservation of intellect, preservation of wealth, money, preservation of lineage, isn't it?
Bilkul. Yes.
Now, if your community, this is what this means. If your community is not preserving these things, then you use Ahkam Sharia to create a society which is based upon the culture of preservation.
Subhanallah.
I hope that
make that the path for them to take.
Voila.
That's it.
Voila. That is what culture is.
And this is a beautiful point you make there, because going back to we have to, I think, the whole question today is go back to the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And like you said, every single incident of what happened in Makkah, in Medina, in the homes, in the masjid, in the conversations. One of the things that we often mentioned as well is how when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina, the women folk of Medina were different to the women folk of Makkah. So they happened to say Umar, he wouldn't expect the wife to say something back to him or to ask him in a particular way. And his wife said to him, well, the ladies of the Ansar, they speak to their husbands in this way. So why can't you take it from me?
Why can't you?
Yeah. So this shows that, this idea of the wife has to just, stop. No, otherwise she's evil wife and no good and this, that. And she can't say,
Mawla, they didn't know Sayyida Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala that, did they?
Talk back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam of all people, not to talk back as in the middle of that word, but show her feelings, to express yourself, they did this, right? And it's something that we have to understand. That's what Islam showed, that yes, you can do this, and that's fine.
But Mawlaya, there's something very significant that we're touching on. It's not only the essence of culture here now, because I'm going to touch on this now. We're going to the way I'm imposing this question, I'm saying, but where does this suspicion and dislike of culture or tradition come from within our communities? Okay, even though it's something completely different, even though what you realize is it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're coming to what people have tuned in for, what's going on basically.
Do you know what I mean?
Like, go back to the very point I said, what is the clash? No, there's no clash, but why is there a deemed, apparent clash? Yes. Where does it all come from? Bismillah.
Where does it come from?
No.
The issue lies first and foremost upon the understanding of what culture is. We've just explained what Thaqafa is. It's a cultivation of a society or a community, all right, through particular values, particular appreciations of society. May that be cuisine, may that be the way we see the world, and etc. True? But we as Muslimin, the guiding light for us, or what rectifies that, or verifies that, or codifies that, is ad-Din al-Islam. Okay? So the code of conduct is Islam. To do what? To cultivate a culture. That's what it is. Because that's what culture is to cultivate a culture or grow a culture of righteousness, good, what is good in society, and etc. What you find then is wherever the Muslimin went, they didn't eradicate the resident cultures of them countries. What I'm talking about is their clothing, their cuisines, their architecture, there's certain values that they held, right, on certain aspects. Because what the Muslimin did was, if these things were compatible with ad-Din al-Islam, no problem.
Hmm.
Why do you think the Islam of the world is is a tapestry of
Yeah.
beauty? From one side of the world to the other side of the world, the languages are different, the clothes are slightly different, the topis are different, the masajid are different. Look, the masajid in China look like regional buildings with
Yes.
the low build,
So,
it is
what do you think to the masajid in the UK then? Should we be designing our masajid differently?
look, ultimately, in a way, we have designed them differently because in hot countries, you will
Yeah.
have open courtyards, you'll have
Yes. Yes.
open areas, do you understand? And the masajid. In this country, our
No car
masajid are made,
parks.
yeah, in this country, our masajid are made for this country because we
Mm.
have heaters, we have carpeting, we have curtains, we have, very good insulation structures there, everything, alhamdulillah, accordingly. So they're enclosed buildings. They
Yeah.
don't have courtyards and structures like that in place because it would not work according to the environment and the weather of this country.
No,
So
definitely.
so in a way, architects have done that. They kept that in mind.
So
They have
coming
done
back to
that.
this, then, so Islam
Yeah.
went across the globe, and you could talk places like Indonesia, Malaysia, China, Morocco on the in the west, Turkey and Yemen and
Yes. It
Africa,
didn't.
and
Yes.
what did they do? It took each culture was had its own sort of practices or preferences, like the
Uniqueness.
tastes,
Yes.
uniqueness, and it cultivated that to what was within the Islamic guidelines, parameters, and it developed the people. So they became Muslims, but didn't have to get rid of everything they were doing
They didn't. They retained
unless
their
unless
languages.
it was something that contradicted the Islamic framework.
But even then, CD
Yes.
contradicted what?
Yeah. Too good question.
The
Contradicted in
maqasid
what way?
sharia. The maqasid
Yeah.
sharia
That's right.
contradicted the maqasid, the preservation of the 5, 6 essentials within that community and society.
That's a very
How
good
that
point
was done? Yeah.
because the scholars actually debated on practices and whether this practice actually, they say al-ada muhakkama. This is one of the rules
Yes.
we have, isn't it, in fiqh,
Yes.
that the custom of a people, what they do, has a role to play in ahkam, in rulings,
Yes.
in what happens, what we say is allowed, not allowed, and so forth. And somewhat of an example, maybe not perfect example, but in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he allowed them lady folk to go to the masajid. And he said,
Yes.
visit the masajid and off you go. Later on, when Islam spread and certain areas where when the ladies were going to the graveyards and they were visiting the deceased and paying their respects, there was problems. There was people who were unfortunately evil on the way, and there's difficulties. So the ulama, based on the circumstances, said these customs that are developed, not good customs here at the moment. And this is one thing, the ada can be good or bad, by the way, right? It was used to say, look, for now, ladies should not, in these circumstances, be going to the uh, cemeteries. But it didn't say we've changed the rule of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam
No. No. No.
to this. This is only for the setting here right now because of
Correct.
the culture, the customs, the behavior of society, not an
Of
individual,
society.
society. So we have to
That's
change
right.
things. And similarly for financial transactions, you will find the scholars debated financial, buying and selling in particular ways. Are we allowed to buy in this way? And these are now what we live in today. People could maybe ask these questions. That Bitcoin, they didn't know, what's going on here. Is it a valid way of transacting or not? These new contracts, these new ways of buying and selling. Online sales. These are now social norms. There's nothing
Yes.
deemed weird at all. And Islam doesn't regard anything as weird, to be honest. It's just life, and it deals with everything accordingly. So I think this is
Accordingly.
where, yeah.
So, Sidi Maulay, so then the question, if this what this is, that we shouldn't be plotting culture against or religion or Islam per se,
Against culture, yeah.
then the question arises is, but where does this suspicion and dislike of culture or tradition come from? Lack of understanding, number one. Number two, the way certain things are said. ਸਾਡੇ ਆਬੋ ਅਜਦਾਦ ਇੰਜ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸਨ
No.
ਅਸਾਂ ਤੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਦੇ ਸੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸਾਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸਾਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ ਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਤੱਕੋ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਜੇ ਕਲਚਰ ਬਣਾਏ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ that has more to do with the that individual's personal understanding of what they perceive of their own culture. Because you have to also understand is the cultivation of culture in every home as well. There's culture of society. All right. And do remember, I'm separating society from culture because culture is the cultivation of all of these aspects. Society is how where human beings engage, interact. See, there are two different phenomena here. They're two different things. So there's also internally in the home. But Shariat, Ad-Din al-Islam, doesn't remove itself from that culture as well. In the house, this is where the clash comes. Okay? Where this attitude is from the youngsters as well as with the elders. Youngsters are like, Shariat this is not within the Sharia. What are you talking about? And do remember, majority of the people who say this, forgive me for saying this, they have a very limited understanding of what Shariat is. I'm being very blunt. They have a very limited understanding of what Shariat is. They don't understand the wus'at of Sharia. They don't understand it. In Afghanistan, culturally, women wear what? A burqa.
Burqa, yeah.
All covered.
Yeah.
Yeah. If a Pakistani woman, for example, I'm giving examples of women. We're giving examples of women, alhamdulillah, but because I think so, these are the most apparent things that come up.
Yeah.
A Pakistani woman went to Afghanistan. She'll have a chadar on, because if a woman from the Arab world went, she'll have a niqab on, so her eyes will be seen. If a woman went from North Africa, right, she'll have a semi-niqab which is translucent, so you could still see this face to a certain extent, but it'll be covered through a translucent, covering.
Yeah.
Right? Who's right? Who's abiding by Shariat there?
If you look at the
a woman in the West who's wearing a headscarf, right? Her face is uncovered. You can see her face. You can see her tiki, everything. Who's abiding by Shariat?
Very good question. I think this one could get a hot topic. This in itself is a big one.
I'm coming. It is, but what I'm trying to say is, who's wrong and who's right?
So I wouldn't say anybody's wrong or right. That there's no wrong. I would say there's no wrong.
There you said it.
Because there's an interpretation for each one. There's a practice. There's a room for each one. There's it's plausible that you could practice that. It wouldn't contradict anything. So there's room, and if that's how you want to express that, it's fine.
Because our deen gives that flexibility.
Yes,
that's what the crucial aspect is, the flexibility. So where the suspicion and dislike comes from is, number one, is through lack of understanding of what culture is, right, and what deen is, what religion is, what Shariat is.
Yes, so in this case, Shariat is covering yourself, right, in a modest way, and this implies for men, by the way, the concept of hijab.
The Quran
is the same for men and women. They should lower their gaze, should cover themselves. What I'm wearing right now is probably from the Arab world. This is not from my particular culture. They don't wear this in Pakistan or in India.
I'm going to touch on that as well. Right? See, I'm going to touch on that.
Why am I wearing that? Because I feel comfortable in this. I can wear salwar kameez, and I do sometimes, right? I feel comfortable in this. I wear the Moroccan one sometimes. This one particularly is Saudi, right? There's Yemeni style ones. There's Omani. There's different ones, and we just like the different styles. I personally don't mind any of them.
No, that's wrong.
Right? You go to Turkey,
let me say
very loose clothing. So the purpose here is that what I think the listeners need to understand is, look, Islam is the word used earlier. What's that? There's this expansion. There's this expanse. Yeah. There's room, and as long as you're within that, the Prophet said, "I've left you on mahajjatun bayda." This amazingly, big path. Man zagha anha halik. Whoever goes off this massive path, he's destroyed. But because it's such a big path, there's room. Don't say don't do this. Say like this only one space, and you shove everything through the. It's like you see a big guy going through a door and you can't get through. It's like you made Islam into this little tight door. It's so big, it's so expansive, and it has room. As long as there's room, Bismillah.
So Maulai, the first thing is about knowledge.
Yes.
Second thing is the people who use the arguments of Sade Abujdad Sani Karnasan, Ja Sade culture is Reve. You know, I've picked on people like that. I go, Allah, thoda about to say. Not being arrogant about it, not being funny. I'm literally putting it back on their feet. Because I'm saying, thoda about to say, they don't know what it is. They don't know what it is.
It's because it's just what's being passed on culturally, and
to
not
themselves.
from the source isn't the Sharia, the source isn't the Sunnah, the source is the groupthink, if you like. What has been passed on from, we just saw it and we thought it was right. We thought it was right. We haven't got
Maulaya,
for, you know.
There's no, but there's this, isn't it? What is in North Pakistan is different to, if you come in the central Pakistan, it's different to what is in south of Pakistan. What is in Mirpur? What is in Mirpur is like different to what is in Punjab. What is in Punjab is different to Sindh.
And this applies to Africa. If you go to the African countries, you know,
same thing.
From one place to another, you might think, oh, these are, you know, what's the difference between a Moroccan and Algerian and Tunisian? But you go there and you'll find a lot of differences. You'll find a lot of, you know, practices and, you know, cultures. They're different, you know.
But what it is in all of them is adherence to the tenets of Ad-Din al-Islam.
Yes.
That's what the beauty is. Now, you touched on something very interesting, Sidi Maulay. Let me say this. I'm going to say this now.
Go ahead.
We are the products of our cultures.
But I believe you. I agree with you 100%.
All of us.
We are.
Even the people who say, we've got nothing to do with culture. Sorry, mate. You are a product of your culture. Look at this. Now, our own experiences as Asians, Pakistani, Punjabi, Mirpuri, Patwari, subcontinent cultures. Now, throw into all of that Western culture.
It's becoming a hodgepodge. You're making a hodgepodge here.
You are. No, why am I doing it? Because there is a misunderstanding that has to be clarified. Because we are the products of our environments.
We are, yeah.
So even the person who says, Maulaya, Asif, and Asif Allah, and Asif Jiddan, just one more thing, inshallah. We are the product of our cultures.
Okay? We are. Yes.
So even the country that we live in today, we are impacted by its culture, by its values, by its engagement, by its laws. But what keeps us Muslim? Adhering to the guidance which Ad-Din tenets have given us.
That's it, yeah.
That's it.
And let's bring the discussion to this, because I think a lot of our listeners will, obviously, Western world, they've got their culture, some of them, probably converts listening, who haven't got the culture from a particular other, you know, background. They are just, let's say, British or, you know, English, and now they become Muslim. Whereas someone like we said, from Africa, from Asia, from Turkey, from different parts of the Islamic world who've come to the Western world, whether it's in England or Europe somewhere. France is a hotbed as well. You know, I'm sure you've heard, you know,
Moroccan.
But yeah, it's a big culture clash. Again, I use the word culture clash, but it is somewhat. You know, people are now culture identity is what I'm trying to say. You know, this identity, finding who you are. Or, you know, are you British, Pakistani, British? Are you know, what are your values and what are you going forward? And it impacts your decisions in life and what you want to do with yourself and all of this kind of thing. So it does come to this question, which, you know, Brother Farhan patiently asked at the beginning. So I think maybe we can address this question in the comments. Says, I'd like to understand the ahadith regarding not imitating other religions. How far does one go with not imitating, and what is the context of such a hadith? So first of all, I'll pose the question to you, Mullah, first, but just to clarify, the hadith doesn't say other religions, okay? The hadith says, Man tashabbaha biqawmin, a people. Qawm is a group of people that have social norms that support each other. Qawm is actually those that are qa'imuna, they are the ones who look after this idea of qawwamun ala nisa. We mentioned this last time about those who are guardians, caretakers. So the qawm is a group of people that look after the greater society, and was predominantly used in the traditional Arabic to refer to men. Why I'm saying that is you've got to understand the context of the hadith. When the Prophet used qawm, and in the Quran, qawm is used directly in parallel to nisa. La yaskhar qawmun min qawmin wala nisa'un min nisa'in. Men should not mock or belittle other men, and women should not mock and belittle other women. So the word for men was qawm, and this is the same word in the hadith. So what it means to me, and what the hadith in its context means, is there's a group of people. It doesn't say, and of course the Prophet is saying that we are Muslims and we have Muslim values, and then you'll find people. Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum, and you will find people, and if you imitate them, you'll become a part of them. Now, the normal sort of take on this hadith is negative. That if you like somebody, you've gone away from Islam, you're from them, and you're not from Muslims anymore. But Mullah, based on what you've said, I think we can look at this in a different way. So if you want to maybe enlighten us further on how we could understand this hadith.
Firstly, you are 100% to interpret it in this particular way. You're right, it was not with the Adyan. But there are other hadiths of Rasulullah where Prophet ﷺ has said about, do not imitate the Yahud wa Nasara.
Bilkul, yes.
And he does say this. Now, in what? In their religious tenets or their religious rituals. That is where the difference lies. Right? We're not talking about everything else in other aspects and which adhere to the basic tenets of your own Deen al-Islam. There's no violation of that. If you imitate them in their religious, and because you have to understand, within the Nasara, they had gone down the path of shirk as well.
Yes, yes.
So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they were these Yahud and Nasara were the most closest in ideology, religion, philosophy about the oneness of God, but they had moved away from that. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying to you and I as believers, don't imitate them in that way. If you imitate them in that way, what has happened to them will also happen to you. That's number one. Number two, when you look into the life of Rasulullah, when he was in Makkah al-Mukarramah, he made it very clear regarding Muslim identity or monistic identity compared to the mushrikeen. So all of the aqwal which you look at in the hadith of Rasulullah in Makkah al-Mukarramah, they're all about don't imitate the mushrikeen, don't engage with the mushrikeen, don't be like the mushrikeen. All right, or the those who were fire worshippers, or those who were, he said it very clearly. But when not about the Ahlul Kitab, because that was not the discussion, because they were not there as a dominant. But when Rasulullah came into Medina Sharif to create a unique Muslim identity, then he started to say that you do not imitate or engage when, and we all know this about the Shura, the keeping of the fast of the Shura. The call of Rasulullah was what? That we have more right on Musa alayhi salam than they do, so we will keep 2 fasts. Right? That's the hukum, isn't it? We will keep 2 fasts. On one side, so by keeping one, which was they keeping, we distance ourselves from that and created a unique identity of ourselves, which is that we keep 2 because we have more right on Musa alayhi salam, because at that time we were adhering to the tradition of Musa alayhi salam on the basis of the wahdaniyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Subhanallah.
That's what it is. So where Rasulullah has said, do not imitate, it is in religious rituals. Clear cut. In the case of Hazrat, what you have said, and the call that Akhil Aziz has presented in front of us, you are 100% right to say that it is the qawm. It's nothing to do with a religion there. And which aspects of the qawm? Which do not adhere to your tenets, rules, adhere to the tenets of your deen, the rules and regulations of the deen, the preservation of deen, the preservation of Sharia, the maqasid of Sharia, that aspect.
So let's just go through a few points then. So the brothers, asking, can I wear Western clothes? Yes or no, Malai? Can you wear jeans and a t-shirt?
No. Let me. No, Akhil Aziz, itni jaldi na jao na.
No. What I want to do is just go into a bit of detail, because we're giving the broader image. But some of our listeners would have these direct questions. Look, I see brothers with hairstyles. I'm going to move into those. I want to just touch on a few of these things. So where would you draw the limits on, hairstyles, clothing, sort of attitudes, words, language, slang? Where do we, so we're saying this. I just want to go into these specifics, if you don't mind.
Okay, that's what, no, of course I don't, because my next where I was, where I'm, and alhamdulillah, this is working in correlation. What I'm thinking is, do you remember we are there are subcultures.
Yeah.
We are hybrids of different influences and interactions. We are hybrids as well. We are not entirely Pakistani or Mirpuri.
Yeah. No.
We're not entirely English. We're not entirely British. We're not entirely European.
We're weird. Is that what you're trying to say?
No. We are human.
Yeah, this is a human reality. We are human.
I said this. I said. I was talking to one of my colleagues today. He's an Anglican priest here, and he goes, "I was just, just thinking aloud, and of course, I knew we were going to come and discuss this subject and etc." And I had a bit of a chat with him, discussion with him, and in the conversation, as we were talking, right, and Allahumma salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik sallam. I had a frame of mind what I was going to tell you. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa Sayyidina wa barik sallam. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Habib Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi barik wa sallam.
What was the name of the Anglican priest?
Sean Page.
Sean Page. Okay, that's what I help you remember.
Inshallah. So Sean Page. So I got to just telling him, I'm thinking of talking and discussing about this and stuff like this, and whatever. Now he goes, as people. Even because he's Irish,
okay,
he's Irish background, yeah. Now he spoke about this as well. He goes, there is genuine. We have subcultures. We ourselves are not one thing or the other, right? We have many influences in us, right? Even though he says I see myself as an Anglican, but I myself, I'm from Ireland, right? I'm an Anglican, which comes from England.
Yeah.
All right, he's a Protestant, but he's from Ireland, where there is conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants.
Yeah,
I'm coming from. So he is ethnically, you would say, Irish, but he's religiously Protestant, ideologically Protestant.
Yeah,
right. That in itself is a different hybrid. It's different.
Yeah,
it's not found a lot.
So there's many hybrids. I think the modern world what we're living in has got many hybrids. Like the French one you mentioned, with the North African French, with Germany, you got a lot of Turkish people there. So I think there's so many, like I'd say, mixtures. It's not a clash. It's not a contradiction, like we've explained.
I think it's not this or that.
But what are the things that I really feel that we need to get to, and maybe the questioner feels the same. I think is a challenge is. For me, and this was something I came across. I can't remember, one of my colleagues said this to me, that what they saw in the youth today. So I'm talking about the youth as well here now, the younger generations, because they're growing up with an even bigger identity crisis or identity search, let's say. And the words were something like, we need to help them feel comfortable in their skins to be Muslims. We've made it complicated for them. We're putting so much baggage on and so much. They just need to feel confident as Muslims. They need to be confident as human beings. Just build confidence. I think one of the killers of confidence is this idea that you can't be truly British and then Muslim, or truly Irish and Anglican. Let's say this is other challenges out there. I mean, our world is Islam, but these perceived clashes, these sort of almost imposed on us, are really damaging us as well, I think, and this idea of culture I think there's still a lot of searching to do and a lot of balancing, and there's developments, and it's a hybrid that's still in development. It's still evolving, as we can use that word, right? It's still changing, because the world is changing, and like you said,
we're changing.
We're changing, exactly. The world is changing, technology is changing, so it's ultimately gonna. So I would say right now, you and I, Mola, we're probably from a similar ideological, environmental background, socioeconomically, etc. But our children are not.
They're not.
So the generation gap has an impact on the culture of people.
Yes. And we are not like our parents.
Exactly.
We have taken elements and aspects and values and concepts and feelings and pain or whatever from them, but that has evolved into something else now, which is adaptable to this country. The societal needs, requirements, and etc. Now, you just said something about Because what we do is this. We just said culture is many things. It's not in headalogs against Islam. It's not. Islam is a religion, faith, dogma, concept, way of life, but it's the code that cultures abide by
Yeah.
on the basis of righteousness, kindness, protecting, preservation, etc. Now here, you ask a question, for example, if a kind of person wear trousers, we're talking about clothing, which is part of culture.
Yeah, part of
Kind of person wear a certain type of clothing. If the trouser adheres to the rule that your tashrif is not exposed, अक्ल वाली के लिए इशारा काफी होता है.
जी.
You understand when I say tashrif?
Yeah,
It's not exposed, right? There's nothing wrong with wearing a trouser. In fact, the evolution of the trouser happened from Turkey. A lot of people don't know this. Yes. The trouser was evolved from Turkey. And originally, the crotch area was much lower. You know, like our salwar in Pakistan.
Yeah, it was very loose and baggy.
It's very similar. It was very similar to that.
That was the trouser sort of like that.
That's how it started like. So when it started to come into, so for example, Western Europe or Eastern Europe, then started to come through. Even today, if you go to Eastern Europe, you'll find the same style. Or you go into Turkey, you'll find the same style. But as it started to come into European or Western European countries, it started to become much more tighter. Right? That's what happened with the trouser. So it originates from somewhere else. Once again, there is interaction, taking, gaining from each other's connections of culture. That's what's happening. Same with languages. Not a single language on earth someone could say that is not influenced by other languages. That is a blatant lack of understanding of how languages work. Now, for example, the Quran doesn't say that you have to wear a Saudi-made jubba.
I've not found that in the Quran, alhamdulillah.
Definitely haven't. But what does it say? That the clothing should be something that covers your body and doesn't show your form.
Yeah.
That's it.
خذوا زينتكم عند كل مسجد.
Yes.
Make it beautiful. So it says beautiful in the actual word.
Yes.
When you pray, take your clothing, your zina.
Yes. Now here, it doesn't matter if a person is from the Western hemisphere, Northern hemisphere, Southern hemisphere, Eastern hemisphere, doesn't matter. According to the environments, every single culture, society, community on earth has a concept of modesty. Even in Europe. Anything that goes beyond the knee upwards, right? Especially in the last 20 years. Before that, if you go beyond the maybe 30, ankles. 40 years before that, ankles was considered, that's not modest, that's immodest. In the West, I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now, if it is lower than, or shorter than the knee, right, it's seen as immodest. If it's beyond that, that's modest.
I would
say
that people in the West don't even have any shame showing their thighs.
No, this is, but Mola, what I'm trying to say is, you look at culture is based upon the majority's understanding of modesty. In every culture, you will find, like, for example, I'll give you a simple example, salwar kameez of our beloved sisters.
Yeah.
Look at it today. Today, the same salwar kameez, right, which is part of Pakistani culture or Hindustani culture, right, is tight. It's very tight from here. It's very tight from the paint job.
Now you're saying,
Yeah, no, I'm talking about now. So what has happened is that same clothing which was modest, and it's from Pakistani culture, all right? What are you going to say? Oh, where's your salwar kameez laya kar? No. The hukum is, if it doesn't adhere to the modest aspect of ruling, you can wear salwar. She can wear the same color, the same style, but looser.
So here, with the point we're getting to is, modesty is where the rule comes in from Sharia,
Yes.
not the color, the design, the material, the culture, but the modesty. What is modesty is not the majority. I was going to go against that. Are you defining it from a social, social level and modern definitions? From an Islamic perspective, modesty is what the Sharia says. Modesty is what the Quran and Sunnah say. So our modesty has to be in line with this, and that's the regulation. Anything beyond, anything that's not, anything that's within modesty and is secondary, such as colors, let's say, and this, that, the other. Bismillah. I mean, if you go to Africa, they have lots of nice colors and stuff. I've
They do.
friends
The
from
men
Africa.
have.
They wear, yeah, the men and the women. They have nice colors, and
Yeah.
I have friends from Nigeria, mashallah, like colleagues. We study together, and they have amazing clothing. I was like,
Same, yeah.
mashallah,
Wallahi.
alhamdulillah, right?
So our
Mullah, we're getting towards the end of the
yes,
show. So we had a couple of questions. One is on polygamy, I think we would call it. And the question, if I can just read it out to you for the listeners as well, is it says in Assalamu alaikum, in modern times, wa alaikum assalam, it is culturally, something in the West probably here, not as accepted for a man to have more than one wife at the same time, even though it's religiously allowed. So this idea of multiple wives, Quran says 2, 3, 4, or 1. Modern life, culturally not accepted, not culturally, of course, as it was in the past. It seems to be something frowned upon in society. Please, can you talk a little about this?
yes.
Okay, and the other question we've got in the comments here is about old wives' tales, and it says, can they be followed, e.g., placing metal next to newborns? Apparently, it wards away bad spirits, and healing stones, crystal, etc. Also, generally believing in bad omens. So we've got these two questions to deal with. So, Bismillah.
Around the whole conversation around polygamy, right?
Yeah.
Firstly, let's clarify this, that from a Christian Judea tradition, polygamy is part and part of their theology,
Okay.
and their Shariat. Yeah, it exists within their books and is part and parcel of that.
Mm-hmm.
Within civil society, of course, this comes under bigamy. If you marry officially with two women, that's a violation of the law, right?
Okay.
Now, the violation of the law on the basis that you cannot legally marry two women at one time. Now, they just, the brother or the sister who's presented that, they said culturally. In fact, it's within civil law, no doubt, which impacts culture.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Yeah. But if we looked very carefully at the culture of this country, for example, to have, even though it's not liked, it's not favored, but culturally is okay to a guy to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 different
5 or 6 or 7
sexual partners.
Yeah.
Right?
It's some, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not
predominant
liked.
That
Yeah.
It's common, let's say, but like I would say, it's not as publicly, nobody goes out saying with obviously their mates and stuff, but generally the societal
It's
level
infidelity.
is not really done openly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's infidelity. You are with a long-term partner. You're with a long-term partner. Your long-term partner wouldn't want you to be engaging in that type of relationship, with other women or other men.
So it is frowned upon then.
Yeah. No. From the perspective of the girlfriend boyfriend, but culturally, it's engaged in.
It's engaged in.
Right?
Yeah.
It's engaged in.
Yeah.
People will have one or two partners, and we live in a hyper sexualized world because of Tinder, because of particular type of apps online.
I say they don't know what Tinder. Can you give me and maybe our listeners an update? What's Tinder?
Oh God Almighty! The instant gratification, brother. That's what that is.
Okay.
Now, for example,
I've got the idea, but it sounds like partners. A Kinder egg, like a surprise Kinder egg, like that.
Yes, that's right.
Kinder.
That's it. It's Tinder. So Tinder is the people put their private profile or something in there, and they find like-minded people who want to have a little bit of fun, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and it's used, right? Oh, he lives down there, or they live down there. She lives down
there.
Yeah. So which is in the modern sense is used and practiced in this particular place. Okay.
And this is is this a mainstream app, or is this like?
Yeah, of course it is. No, of course it is. That's what it is. But anyway, what I'm trying to say, that this type of aspects and elements exist, but you also have to understand. But you also have to understand, in English culture, they don't like talking about the antics, what happens in the bedroom. It's culturally disliked. They get up to everything, but the Europeans are very different. Europeans are very open about it. Their culture is much more open, right? Of that type of behavior, etc. Why am I touching on this? Because we talked about the concept of polygamy. In the last 10 years, what has happened is, and I don't know if you remember, there was a program that was on, there was a young girl who said, my 9 mothers, something like that it was called. It came on Channel 4 about 6 or 10 months ago, right? So there was this ultra-religious Jewish gentleman who had bought a farm, I think someone in Suffolk or somewhere like that, and he had married, all right, bought into his marriage 9 different women. Okay, in this country, on the basis of even violation, but a whole program was made on it. Okay. So polygamy per se within the law will be unacceptable because this is part of law. It has been challenged. There are individuals and certain sectors of society which are trying to work down a path to say, look, we are ready to give the rights to these women. Fully and completely. We will become obligated. But this is what the Quran and Hadith says. And what does the Quran clearly say? You can marry 4, 3, or 2, but if you can't be equal with them, only one's enough.
Yeah.
Right? It's the only scripture on earth which does that, which says only one. It's the only one. No other. The Bible doesn't say. Yeah, see, the Bible doesn't
say, you know, multiple is fine. Limiting to one isn't really mentioned.
It's not mentioned. The only scripture that mentions it is Al-Quran al-Karim.
Subhanallah.
It's the only one. If you can't be equal with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So polygamy in our tradition is very, very strict. It's harsh. Right? So it's not like the guy feeling a bit frisky, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I'm going to marry some woman. Nah, mate. It doesn't work like that. Double the pressure, bro. It is. You have to have an amazing zamir to deal with that. So this is what our tradition says. Responsibility. So there is some change that's happening within the law, within discussion.
One of the angle, maybe the question I had to address this point as well, from a Muslim cultural, when I say Muslim culture, I mean Muslim in the UK, their cultural perspective. So we've got the Western, we've got the Islam. Now there's us, me, you, I, you know, our families, people around similar to us, whatever part of the world they're from or their roots are from. Even amongst this, we've grown up. You would say that we've been influenced by the culture we live in, but you know, are we ourselves against polygamy? Are we ourselves saying, look, it's better to stick with one? Who has 2 these days? Who is, you know, what's this? And I think the whole culture has become, you know, just stick to one. Yeah, you know, be satisfied with the one. Look after one. You can't even look after one. What you going to do with 2? You can't even barely look after. You know, this is the attitude we've become. I think the question might be saying, why has the attitude become like this for? What happened to this? You know, look after 2, 3, 4 women. You know, isn't that an honor? You know, maybe that's the question. Is you know,
I'm gonna be mischievous. Well, I'm gonna be mischievous.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna be mischievous. I'm gonna say, I don't think the brother's married.
It may be a sister. It may be a sister.
Oh, I'm joking. Allahumma salli wa sallim.
Maybe he's getting ready to get married.
I'm gonna get in trouble for this. But Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik sallim. Look, it's not only because of where we are. Our own deen discusses this in a lot of detail about the not violating the right of the other. In marriage especially, if we truly practiced what our deen says regarding the one wife that we have, that in itself it gives najah. But when you have 2 or 3 or 4, that demands a very different type of attitude. Like amongst the Arabs, the Arab culture, culturally, the women within the Arab world are very different. They're very different. They have been brought up with this idea of, You may have one or two or three different women in the household. In Eastern culture, this is not only a Western issue. In Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh, etc., they only have a concept of one marriage. It's in numbers is much less to marry more than one woman. Within them as well. It's nothing to do with the way this country feels about polygamy, because we know the benefits of that when it is done correctly. When it's done correctly, this is the issue that needs to be dealt with and talked about. Okay, even polygamy, for example, suddenly polygamy becomes permissible.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now, people are not just going to go out and get married to women, because then the obligation comes in.
If
all
legal,
the rights,
with
all
legal
the
rights. Yeah.
Oh my God. It puts pressure. It really, come on, only to deal with one individual, like the husband or wife and etc. It's a great duty on an individual. Now you have two or three, etc. That increases. It doesn't decrease, it increases. Huh? And this is what needs to be kept in mind. I don't disagree with this aspect. Maybe there is a percentage of individuals, because of this environment, they feel, I don't want to, I don't want to go down that route and etc. That's within this country, because we don't want to break the law.
Break the law, yeah. I think that's more so to do with that.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to violate the law of this country. And alhamdulillah, we don't need to, with the grace of God Almighty.
Mullah, the final question here, because we are in a short time, is the old wives' tales. I don't know if that's culture or just old wives' tales, which are old wives' tales in every culture, I suppose. But these kind of things that, walking under the ladder, metals and spirits, and, I don't know what's going on here, and what does Islam say basically about this? Any advice you could give us regarding these types of superstitions, let's say,
Shara and superstitions are something which Shariat does not adhere to.
Yeah, rejects.
Right? That's rejects. Yeah, it's very clear on that. But I'm going to tell you something. I have looked into on a personal, because a lot of different cultures around the world have these so-called wives' tales, right? And they're not all weird.
Yeah.
Is ye khao, wo piyo, right?
Yeah.
And when you look into a little bit, you realize they're not entirely wrong. Only difference is they don't know where it comes from. They don't know where it is derived from.
Where's the reference? Where's the proof?
Yeah, I'll give you a simple example. I was in Fez,
MashaAllah,
in Morocco, right? Fez, yeah. And suddenly an argument kicked off with some people. They're walking and they started to shout and scream at each other. I read in a book, a novel, in fact, which was written about Arab culture, Arab attitudes, and things like that. Yeah. And what I read was that if an argument take place, if you say Sallu ala Nabi, the people will break. They'll break up the argument.
Yeah.
Now I had already read about this.
Sallu ala Nabi means send salutations on the Prophet's last.
Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you something here.
In Arabic.
Now I had read this. I've never seen it done. Now this happened. It happened in Fez. Myself and one of my friends, yeah, we were there, and we were doing like a 6-city tour, and that was one of the cities. So we went there, and when this happened, I go, and it really 10-15 people got into it. I go, Sallu ala Nabi.
Sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
They go, Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, diminished.
Ya salam. Allahu Akbar.
Because it became part of their culture.
Yeah.
Right? Now, because it's second nature to them. Okay? Now, I know at least 15, 20, 30, 40% of them will never know where that comes from. I can tell you that now. They wouldn't know where it comes from.
It's built into their daily lives.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm giving this as an example because not everything which doesn't have a reference is wrong.
Yeah.
Because that reference is unknown by the individual who's giving you that.
Because,
so I'm not, I'm not ready to put down someone, because when you start studying, when you start learning, right? I remember when I first time when I had the opportunity to read the canon Al Qanun, okay, and I was comparing some of the medical advice that Ibn Sina gives compared to modern medicine. It seemed like what he's talking about is archaic and is wives' tales. But guess what? When I started to delve into alternative medicine, which a lot of people are going to, they were quoting Ibn Sina. They were quoting him as a reference. Because what needs to be understood is that we as a people, we need to be careful before we start to belittle someone. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Which are clear cut. Those things are which are clear cut, right? Stay away from that. You can sarahatan see that shirk. It's from Allah Ta'ala direct and nobody else, right? But our deen is it has two elements to it: dua and dawa. I've just been teaching Kitab al-Tib in Ibn Majah. It's a combination of both. Knowing the knowledge of different type of herbs, how they used and why they used. So Ammaji goes, Putar, a paki marikin ta rikang hatu mujasiya. You go, Ammaji ekutu kadine gal.
Yeah.
Your Ammaji might not know. Ammaji will say,
a handful of something and it'll just
mere baabya mein ki dasya si.
Yeah. The elders told us.
But if you and I were a bit sensitive, we look into that, guess what? I'm telling you now, you'll find justification of that.
Yeah. So here we've got to be careful when we hear things. We don't dismiss them instantly. Or we do dismiss them instantly. It's a case of, again, the whole regulation, the whole what is acceptable, not acceptable, which comes back to knowledge of Islamic guidelines, Islamic practices. So shirk, like you mentioned, I think it's some things are quite close, very clearly wrong, and we can't accept them. And those ones here, like placing metals, newborns, waterway spirits, this is not from our Sharia. We don't have this concept of placing metals. We have Quranic ayat, we have du'as, it's like you said, dua and
but even, for example, even the discussion around metals, for example.
Around?
No warding off, no around metals. No, look, warding off.
Metals may have properties that help medicinally. I can't deny that. That's science will tell you that, and we accept that. But that's not a spirit. That's medicinal.
There. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. That we have to be very careful.
Yeah.
In differentiating that, clarifying that.
Yeah, we need to.
Look, our deen is very practical. Our deen is not a religion of suspicion or superstition.
Superstition and rigidity and just
it doesn't have that. It has clarity, it has engagement, but it has clarity engagement on the basis of wisdom. Right? Sidi Mola, can I say one thing before we
we've got last 2 minutes, inshallah.
Inshallah. I just want to say this much, inshallah ta'ala, my brothers, my sisters, my elders, my youngsters, alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli wa sallam tabarak sallim, that what needs to be understood is that as cultures, firstly, they're not headalong with the religion of faith. What our Deen Islam has done is that it has created tenets and codes which these different communities, different societies, different cultures will adhere to. So this is why we can have a beautiful tapestry of Muslims. All different color clothing, all different languages, all different engagements, right? Behaviors, liking, disliking, whatever they are, cuisines. But they all adhere to the basic tenets of our Deen al-Islam. Okay. Now there are subcultures. We are the product of subcultures. All right. Like we Pakistani, Mirpuri, Kashmiri, living in England, but we speak like Arabs because we lived amongst them, right? Alhamdulillah, Akhal Aziz, Naam Yam, Ya Shaykh, Aywa, Kida. Now these words are thrown in randomly. I'm speaking English and I'm going, Naam Ya Akhal Aziz, Aywa Kida. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? Aywa. Now what I'm bringing the influence of another culture, another language, etc. into. So I am a hybrid of many things. But there are subcultures. The hip-hop culture is a subculture. Pop culture is subculture. Rap culture is subculture. All right? These are subcultures as well, which influence our identity, behavior, engagement as well. Right? We cannot be individual that just shuts down and say, oh, if it's not Quran, then nothing else. 1 minute. Quran is there to guide. That's what it's there for. If it does not violate the maqasid al-sharia, then there's no problem. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khairan, Mawla. I think the final thing I'd like to say is thank you for your time. Thank you for everyone for joining us. We hope you benefit from this discussion and hopefully got a clearer understanding of the parameters of Islamic guidelines towards our practices, so we can be confident Muslims live in the societies we live in and with the cultures we live, but also be a part of that and not be alien to that, as well as knowing the boundaries of what we cannot do as well, and having the understanding, the wisdom, the word I think of today, wisdom, to deal with those situations. Although the word was used in another context, I think it applies here as well in our cultural struggles or understandings. And may Allah give us the wisdom and tawfiq to be positive members of society and embrace the culture that is part of the world's celebrated ideas and concepts and does not contradict or in any way go against our Islamic morals and teachings. We thank you for joining us. Mulai, thank you very much again.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam to everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.